I was scrolling my life away. Literally. I was feeling completely lost, totally disconnected from myself, and my screen time report was an absolute horror story. My brain just felt empty. I knew I needed a massive change, so I did something completely insane. For Train Today's, I swapped my $1,000 smartphone for ancient Sufi mindfulness practices to see if I could find myself again. This is the story of what happened when I traded the noise of the algorithm for the silence of the soul, and you will not believe how it ends. Have you ever felt like a ghost in your own life? You know that feeling when you wake up after an hour scrolling on TikTok or Instagram, and you have no idea what you even watched? That was my entire life. My days had become this grim, depressing cycle. Wake up, grab phone, work on a screen, relax with a screen, and fall asleep to a screen. I was living in a digital fog, and the person I thought I was, the one with hobbies and passions, felt like he was a million miles away. This decision wasn't just about cutting down on screen time. This was a rescue mission for my own soul. I had this horrible, gut-wrenching feeling that I was outsourcing my entire life to algorithms. They were deciding what I watched, what I got angry about, and how I spent my single most valuable resource, my attention. And the result, I was anxious all the time, completely overwhelmed, and somehow, at the exact same time, fundamentally bored. So, why Sufi practices? To be honest, I knew almost nothing about Sufism, but I was drawn to the little I'd heard about its focus on the heart, on inner experience, and on finding something huge in simple things. It felt like the total opposite of the loud, fake world I was stuck in. For me, this wasn't about religion. It was about finding a spiritual technology for the human heart that's been tested for over 1,000 years. I was desperate for something real, and this felt as real as it gets. So, I set the rules for this insane challenge. For 30 days, rule number 1. My phone gets locked away. Gone! I was only allowed 1 hour in the evening for essential communication. 1 hour. Rule number 2. In its place, I would commit to 3 core simplified Sufi rituals every single day. No days off, no excuses. The goal wasn't to become some kind of mystic monk. It was to see if these ancient tools could help a regular guy in 2026 find his way back to a life that actually felt meaningful. These were the 3 challenges I had to complete every single day. Meditation or silent watch. This is basically a staring contest with your own brain. A daily period of just sitting in total silence to watch my thoughts without getting sucked into them. Sounds easy, right? Wrong. This was one of the hardest things I have ever done. Remembrance. This is like a mental push-up. The practice of repeating a simple, grounding phrase over and over and over to focus the mind and, as the tradition says, to purify the heart. My phrase was super simple. I am here, in this moment. Conscious companionship. This one is wild. I interpreted this as replacing mindless social media scrolling with intentional, present connection. This meant either having deep conversations with people or engaging with timeless wisdom from books. You know, talking to a guy who's been dead for 800 years. Before I started, I took a before snapshot of my life. My weekly screen time was averaging over 7 hours a day. That is a full-time job of doing nothing. My journal was filled with words like anxious, scatter, and exhausted. On a scale of 1 to DIs, my mood was a consistent for that is a failing grade. People, I was at rock bottom, and I was ready to start climbing. Or so I thought. The first few days were brutal. And I don't mean that lightly. They were utterly, excruciatingly brutal. The silence I thought I wanted was actually terrifying. My brain, which was used to a constant fire hose of dopamine and distraction, had absolutely no idea what to do with itself. The impulse to reach for my phone was a physical ache. My hand was literally twitching. They call it a phantom limb, but this was a phantom iPhone. My first attempt at meditation was a complete and total disaster. I sat down on a cushion, day one, thinking I'm about to become a Zen master. I set a timer for 10 minutes. I lasted 4. And in those 4 minutes, my brain showed me every embarrassing thing I have ever done, reminded me of 50 urgent emails I had forgotten to send, and then just played a random commercial jingle on a loop. It was actually psychological torture. It was a direct confrontation with the absolute chaos I'd been successfully numbing with my phone for years. The remembrance was just as bad. Repeating, "I am here, in this moment," felt so cringe. It felt like I was lying to myself. My mind would wander off after the second repetition, and I'd just find myself staring at the wall, thinking about what I was going to have for lunch. And conscious companionship. Trying to have a conversation with a friend without constantly glancing at my phone made me realize how much I used it as a social crutch, a shield for every awkward silence. Without it, I was just there, awkwardly. By day 4, I almost quit. I was standing in my room, staring at the lockbox with my phone in it. I had the key in my hand. I thought, this is stupid. It's not working. It's making me feel worse. I felt even more anxious and disconnected than when I started. The digital fog had lifted, but what it revealed was a desolate, noisy, horrible inner landscape. I was this close to ending the entire challenge, but in that moment of weakness, I wrote something in my journal. I thought I was escaping the noise, but the noise was inside me all along. The phone wasn't the cause. It was just the anesthetic that hit me like a truck. This was the first painful breakthrough. The problem was so much deeper than I could have ever imagined. And then, around day 9, something shifted. Something clicked. I was doing my morning meditation, suffering through the usual mental garbage truck dumping thoughts in my brain. And then, a pause. A gap. It only lasted for a second, maybe 2, but in that space, there was nothing. Just a quiet, peaceful awareness. It was like Edie been drowning in a stormy ocean, and I broke the surface for a single gasp of fresh air. It was so profound it literally brought tears to my eyes. For the first time, I realized I am not the crazy voice in my head. I am the one listening to the crazy voice in my head. Game changer. This tiny victory gave me the fuel I needed to keep going. The remembrance of God practice started to change. 2. I am here. In this moment started to have a rhythm. I started coordinating it with my breath. Inhale, I am here. Exhale. In this moment, it became this gentle anchor in reality. I started using it all the time. Standing in line at the grocery store, instead of pulling out my phone and scrolling through garbage, I'd secretly be doing my mind push-ups. It became my secret superpower to pull myself back from the edge of distraction. Then I started actually reading Rumi. Not just scrolling through his quotes on Instagram, but sitting with a book of his poetry. And I'm thinking, this is a guy who lived 800 years ago. What is he going to teach me? Then I read this one line. The wound is the place where the light enters you. Boom. Mind. Blown. All that pain and anxiety from week 1. It wasn't a mistake. It was the whole point. The suffering was the doorway. This was my conscious companionship. A deep conversation with my 800-year-old life coach who seemed to understand me perfectly. and the world started to look different. This is going to sound crazy, but it was like I had been living my life in black and white, and someone suddenly turned the color up to 4000 Ultra HD. Food tasted better. I ate a strawberry, and it was the best strawberry I had ever tasted in my entire life. I was noticing tiny details that were invisible before. The way the light hit the wall, the sound of birds. I was slowly, finally arriving in my own life. Okay, real talk for a second. If you've ever felt that same sense of being lost, or if this journey is hitting home for you, do me a huge favor and smash that subscribe button, because we are going on more of these crazy journeys together. I'm sharing this because I think this feeling of disconnection is a silent epidemic. And let me know in the comments, what is the one app on your phone you absolutely cannot live without? I'm genuinely curious, and I want to talk about it. Just as I was getting confident, just as I thought I was on easy street, week 3 came in and absolutely destroyed me. I thought week 1 was hard. Week 1 was nothing. This is what I call the dark night of the soul. This is where things got real. The novelty of the challenge wore off, and the practice stopped being a fun challenge and started being a mirror, and I did not like what that mirror was showing me. The extended silence of meditation started digging things up that I had buried deep down. Old insecurities, unresolved grief, and loops of self-criticism that I never even knew were there. There was one session where I was just hit by this overwhelming, crushing sense of loneliness, a feeling I had been running from my entire adult life, using my phone and my busyness as a shield. Now, there was no shield. There was nowhere to run. It was just me and this black hole of sadness in my chest, and it was incredibly painful. I was tempted to stop, for real this time. I thought, this is making me feel worse, not better. This was a real insane part of the story, not some wild stunt, but the raw, terrifying, and transformative battle happening inside my own mind. I was face to face with my own ego, the part of you that resists change and clings to familiar suffering because it's afraid of the unknown. I was about to give up, but I went back to the book, back to my 800-year-old friend, Rumi. And he said, don't be satisfied with stories, how things have gone with others. Unfold your own myth. He was basically telling me, dude, stop complaining and live your own story. Then I read another, you have to keep breaking your heart until it opens. And I realized this pain wasn't trying to kill me. It was trying to break me open. So I did the craziest thing yet. I just sat there. I let the sadness come. I let the anger come. I didn't fight it. I just watched it. And the weirdest thing happened. It passed. It was like a storm cloud. It came, it rained like hell, and then it was gone. And I was still there. That's when I learned these feelings are just visitors. They don't own the place. I do. Week 4, we're in the end game now. This final week felt like a homecoming. This is where everything I learned finally clicked into place. The rituals were no longer a chore or a challenge. They felt as natural and necessary as breathing. My morning meditation became the most precious part of my day. It was like charging my soul's battery. It wasn't always perfectly peaceful. My mind was still messy sometimes. But now I knew how to hold the mess. I had a new awareness that stayed with me all day. The remembrance of God had become second nature, a quiet hum beneath the surface of everything. It's the ultimate emotional regulation tool, and it's free. Stuck in traffic, a few rounds of silent remembrance, feeling a wave of anxiety, a few rounds of remembrance. It was my anchor in the chaos of daily life. And then came the big test. Day 28, I unlocked the box. I picked up my phone. It felt foreign in my hand. Heavy, I opened Instagram. I started scrolling. And I swear to you guys, I felt nothing. The magic spell was broken. The compulsive pull, the addiction, it was just gone. I could see it for what it was. A tool. And honestly, a pretty chaotic and often useless tool. The power was back in my hands. I was finally free. I started having real, conscious companionship. A friend came over. Normally, we'd talk for a bit, then we'd both be half looking at our phones. This time, we'd put the phones in another room. We talked for 3 hours. A real conversation about real stuff. We listened to each other. It was more nourishing than 10,000 likes or 1,000,000 views. This was true connection. So, after 30 insane days, what actually happened? What were the results? Let's look at the stats. My average daily screen time went from over 7 hours a day down to just 58 minutes. That is more than a 90% drop. That is insane. But that's just a number. The real change was internal, that constant, low-grade anxiety. That was the soundtrack to my life. It was gone. Just quiet. Studies I looked at before I started show that these kinds of practices can significantly reduce anxiety and stress, and I am living proof. It actually works. I felt a sense of calm I hadn't felt since I was a little kid. My mood rating, we went from a 4 out of 10 to a solid 9 out of 10. We didn't just pass the test, we aced it. But the most profound transformation was my relationship with myself. Before, I was always looking for the next thing to distract me from me. The next video, the next notification, the next shiny object. The silence forced me to realize I was running from my own company. As the great poet Rumi says, there is a voice that doesn't use words. Listen. For 30 days, I finally started to listen. And what I found wasn't an empty void that needed to be filled with junk from the internet, but a deep presence to be explored. There is a whole universe inside you, but you can't explore it if you're constantly staring at a screen. 30 days ago, I was a ghost in my own machine, a zombie scrolling his life away. Today, I feel like I'm back in the driver's seat. Now, look, this isn't a magic fix. The urge to get lost in distraction will always be there. The world is designed to do that to you. But now I have a map and a compass. The practices of silent watching, mindful remembrance, and conscious connection are my tools to find my way back whenever I feel myself drifting. You don't need to lock your phone in a box for a month or become a Sufi scholar to begin. It can start with 5 minutes of silence instead of scrolling in the morning. It can be choosing one conversation a day where you put your phone away and are fully present. As the poet Rumi wrote, your heart knows the way. Run in that direction. This challenge taught me that the most important connection we will ever have is the one with ourselves. It is the foundation for absolutely everything else in your life. And it's a connection that no app, no device, and no algorithm can ever replace. Thank you so much for joining me on this insane journey. If this story has inspired you in any way, please destroy that like button and subscribe for more adventures and self-discovery. And I genuinely want to know, what is one small ritual you could bring into your life to reconnect with yourself? Share your thoughts in the comments below. I'm going to read every single one.